How do you destroy one of the most heavily fortified nuclear facilities on Earth without dropping a single bomb? Imagine the Natanz nuclear facility in Iran. It is a fortress buried deep underground, encased in layers of reinforced concrete, and protected by sophisticated anti-aircraft batteries. For any military commander, this is a high-value target that would typically require a massive airstrike, a fleet of F-15s, and several high-precision bunker-buster bombs. But in 2010, a surgical strike took place here that changed the rules of warfare forever. There were no jets, no special forces, no explosions. In fact, for the people working inside, it felt like business as usual. This was the ultimate deception. Israeli and American intelligence had invested years into a plan to lull the Iranian leadership into a false sense of security. While the world was looking at the skies for incoming missiles, a silent predator had already slipped past the gates. This was Stuxnet, the world's first true cyber weapon. It wasn't a virus meant to steal data or crash a website. It was a digital missile designed for one purpose: physical destruction. But here is the real question. How does a string of invisible code, consisting of nothing but ones and zeros, bypass the most advanced firewalls on the planet? How does an intangible signal reach out and physically tear apart massive steel machines spinning at supersonic speeds? To understand this masterpiece of digital assassination, we need to go back to the very beginning of the heist. To understand how this operation worked, we have to look at the sheer scale of the digital fortress protecting Natanz. The facility was what experts call air-gapped. This is the ultimate defense in the world of cybersecurity. It means the facility's internal control network is physically disconnected from the public internet. There are no cables, no Wi-Fi, and no remote access points. You cannot hack into it from a basement in Virginia or a secret bunker in Tel Aviv. To get inside, you have to physically cross the threshold. It's like trying to break into a bank vault that doesn't even have a door. So, the operatives behind the mission looked for a bridge. They didn't use a high-tech satellite uplink. They used human nature. They leveraged the most common vulnerability in any security system: human error. The weapon was loaded onto simple, unassuming USB flash drives. The plan was brilliant in its simplicity. These infected drives were likely dropped in areas where Iranian nuclear scientists or third-party contractors would find them. Perhaps left in a parking lot or handed out at a nearby technical conference. All it took was one curious employee or one overworked contractor to pick up a drive and plug it into a workstation inside the facility. The moment that metal contact touched the USB port, the digital gates were thrown wide open. The assassin was inside the wire. But once inside, Stuxnet didn't go on a rampage. In fact, it did the exact opposite. It practiced a level of deliberate radio silence that would make a stealth fighter jealous. For months, it acted like a digital ghost, quietly moving from one computer to the next through the internal network. It was conducting reconnaissance, mapping out every server, every connection, and every piece of software within the facility. It was looking for something incredibly specific. It ignored personal emails, it ignored financial records, and it ignored standard office documents. It was hunting for the heartbeat of the factory, the programmable logic controllers, or PLCs. These are the small industrial computers that act as the brains for the machinery, telling the hardware exactly how to behave. Stuxnet was programmed with a terrifying level of sophistication. It was looking for a very specific target signature, a precise configuration of Siemens Step 7 software. If the virus landed on a computer that didn't match this exact profile, it did absolutely nothing. It stayed dormant. It was a surgical tool, not a blunt instrument. It moved through the system undetected, hiding its presence and ensuring that its movements were dismissed as irrelevant background noise by any basic security protocols. Eventually, it found what it was looking for: the controllers managing the frequency converters for the plant's centrifuges. These are the massive, high-speed machines used to enrich uranium, spinning at nearly the speed of sound to separate isotopes. This was the nerve center of Iran's nuclear ambitions. Once Stuxnet confirmed it had reached the brain of these machines, it locked on. It had achieved total, unmediated control of the physical hardware. The scientists in the control room were still looking at their monitors, seeing everything as normal, completely unaware that a digital ghost had just seized their entire facility. But why was this specific target so critical that it required the most expensive and complex piece of malware ever written? To answer that, we have to look at the devastating power of the machinery Stuxnet was about to destroy. To understand why so much effort went into creating this digital ghost, you have to realize exactly what it was up against. The Natanz enrichment plant is not your average industrial site. It is a subterranean fortress buried nearly 50 feet beneath the Iranian desert. It is encased in multiple layers of high-strength, reinforced concrete, designed specifically to withstand the impact of the world's most powerful conventional bunker-buster bombs. On the surface, the facility is shielded by an array of sophisticated anti-aircraft batteries and early warning radar systems. For any conventional air force, Natanz is a nightmare scenario. A direct attack would require dozens of advanced fighter jets, multiple waves of precision-guided munitions, aerial refueling tankers, and it would almost certainly trigger a full-scale regional conflict that could engulf the entire Middle East. The strategists behind Stuxnet knew this. They needed a way to cripple Iran's nuclear ambitions without starting a hot war. This was about strategic delay and deniability. By targeting the very heart of the enrichment process, the goal was to set the program back by several years, making it impossible for the centrifuges to function while keeping the source of the failure a complete mystery. It was the ultimate pragmatic solution, a surgical, non-lethal strike that achieved massive military objectives without a single drop of blood being spilled. It allowed the attackers to achieve the same result as a massive bombing campaign, but with total silence. But building a weapon that can survive in such a hostile, disconnected environment is an engineering feat of massive proportions. We aren't talking about a simple computer virus written in a basement. This was a state-sponsored masterpiece. Experts estimate the development of Stuxnet cost millions, perhaps even hundreds of millions of dollars, and involved a multidisciplinary team of specialized engineers, cryptographers, and intelligence officers working in tandem for several years. The final result was a codebase consisting of over 15,000 lines of highly complex interlocking instructions. It was, for all intents and purposes, the most expensive and sophisticated digital bullet ever manufactured. Now that we understand the scale of the target and the massive investment behind the mission, it's time to perform a digital autopsy. We are going to break down this digital bullet, piece by piece, to see exactly how it performed the impossible. To understand how Stuxnet actually performs its mission, we have to look at it as more than just a computer program. Think of it as a digital multi-stage missile, precisely engineered to penetrate the world's most secure facility. Just like the long-range missiles used in surgical airstrikes, Stuxnet has a guidance system to reach its target and a lethal payload to deliver the final blow. Only in this case, the guidance system is made of zero-day exploits, and the payload is a sequence of commands that turns heavy machinery into a self-destructing weapon. Let's take a look at the mechanical autopsy of this digital assassin. To satisfy the need for total destruction without being detected, Stuxnet follows a rigorous 4-step operational sequence. Step 1. The breach. Every piece of software has backdoors, but most are known and patched by security teams. Stuxnet, however, utilized what are known as zero-day exploits, vulnerabilities that were completely unknown to the software developers at the time. While most sophisticated hacking attempts might use 10-day, Stuxnet was equipped with 4 of them. This is unprecedented. It's the digital equivalent of having 4 different master keys that can open any high-security lock in the world. This allowed the virus to gain administrative control over the target's operating system, moving through the internal network like a ghost, ensuring that every movement was dismissed as irrelevant by the factory's security protocols. Step 2. The infiltration. Once the virus reached the programmable logic controllers, or PLCs, the industrial computers managing the centrifuges, it performed a man-in-the-middle attack. Imagine a security camera feed being intercepted. Stuxnet essentially stepped between the machines and the technicians. It took over the communication line, allowing it to read every piece of data coming from the machinery while simultaneously injecting its own malicious instructions. It had now seized the brain of the operation. Step 3. The payload. This is where the physical destruction begins. After months of reconnaissance, Stuxnet knew the exact operating frequency of the Iranian centrifuges. These machines enrich uranium by spinning at incredibly high speeds, nearly reaching the speed of sound. They are balanced with extreme precision. Even a slight deviation in speed can cause them to vibrate and shatter. Stuxnet initiated a 2-phase attack. First, it ordered the centrifuges to speed up, pushing them far beyond their safety limits, similar to how a jet engine is pushed into an overspeed condition. Then, it suddenly commanded them to slow down to a near halt. This cycle of extreme acceleration and deceleration created massive mechanical stress. The centrifugal forces became uncontrollable, causing the high-speed rotors to warp, vibrate violently, and eventually tear themselves apart from the inside. Step 4. The deception. This is the masterstroke that makes Stuxnet a work of genius. While the centrifuges were literally exploding and screaming in the basement, the technicians in the control room saw nothing. Stuxnet had recorded several seconds of normal, operational data before the attack. As it began destroying the machines, it played this recorded loop back to the control monitors. To the Iranian scientists, every sensor showed a perfect, stable operation. The machines were indicating they were spinning at normal speeds while they were actually disintegrating. It's like a pilot looking at a cockpit display that shows a steady flight while the wings are falling off the aircraft. By the time the staff realized something was wrong, the damage was irreversible. The mission was a staggering success. These precision digital munitions hit their mark, instantly disabling nearly 4,000 centrifuges, roughly 1/5 of Iran's entire enrichment capacity at the time. It was a surgical operation that set the nuclear program back by years, proving that in the modern era, a few lines of code can be just as devastating as a 2,000-pound bunker buster bomb. The world had just witnessed the birth of a new kind of warfare, where the lines between the digital and the physical were permanently blurred. But as with any weapon of this magnitude, there was a fatal flaw in the plan. The creators of Stuxnet had designed a perfect assassin, but they couldn't keep it on a leash. The story doesn't end with a victory in Natanz. It ends with a global crisis that no one predicted. The mission at Natanz was a clinical success, but the creators of Stuxnet made one fatal mistake. They had built a perfect predator, but they couldn't keep it in its cage. Due to a minor programming oversight, or perhaps a calculated risk that backfired, Stuxnet didn't stay dormant after hitting its target. It escaped. It leaked out of the air, gapped facility, and onto the public internet. Within months, this digital ghost was everywhere. It wasn't just in Iran anymore. It was appearing on servers in India, Indonesia, Russia, and even right here in the United States. Millions of computers were infected. But because the virus was so specifically coded to hunt only Siemens industrial controllers, most people didn't even know it was there. It was a silent, global pandemic of weaponized code. This is where the true terror lies. Stuxnet proved to the world that code can do more than steal data. It can physically destroy cities. It showed that our most vital infrastructure, our power grids, our water treatment plants, and our transportation systems are all vulnerable to an invisible assassin. Once that Pandora's box was opened, there was no closing it. We have entered a new era of cyber warfare where a single line of code can wreak havoc on a global scale, slipping under the radar of conventional defense systems. The same logic used to sabotage a nuclear plant could, in theory, be used to shut down an entire nation's power. The rules of engagement have been permanently rewritten, and in this new digital battlefield, the concept of a safe zone has vanished. Stuxnet was a game changer. It proved that in the 21st century, the most powerful weapon in the world isn't a missile, it's a line of code. We have seen how an invisible assassin can bypass the strongest physical defenses on Earth and destroy a nuclear facility from the inside out. But the escape of this virus has left us with a haunting reality. Our entire world is now a digital battlefield. Everything from our power grids to our water systems is sitting on a digital powder keg. So, I want to hear from you. In your opinion, is the threat of a global cyber war actually more terrifying than a traditional nuclear conflict? Let me know your thoughts in the comments below. We make original content exploring the deep engineering and tech history that shapes our world. So please subscribe and hit the notification bell for more videos.